It's time for part 2 of my mini-series on artists and illustrators who inspire me and helped shape the artist that I've become. If you haven't seen part 1 already, click up here somewhere and check it out. It covers off the comic book era. Lots of great names in there. And thank you to the people who commented and reminded me of some artists that I completely had forgotten about. In particular, Goscinny Adazzo's work on the Asterix series. I grew up reading those cover to cover thousands of times. And the Mad magazines that I used to read all of those years ago too had so many great illustrators in there. Mort Drucker, Don Martin, Sergio Aragone's names that immediately leaped to mind. And thanks to those people who recommended some new artists to me, which is fantastic. I hope that'll be something that continues on through this series. Part 2, I'm entitling The Golden Age Illustrators Who've Inspired Me. And Golden Age of illustration, anywhere from the late 1800s through to the 1930s, probably even to the 50s. And there's a absolute plethora of amazing illustrators and artists from that period. But I'm only going to focus on a few. So there'll be obviously apologies to many, and I hope that some people might include in the comments to this video some of the Golden Age illustrators that they grew up with or that really impressed them or did something to inspire their creativity in some way. So I thought I'd start with Maxfield Parrish, someone who was introduced to me by a good friend of mine. You look at any of Parrish's work and there's some magical glow, some golden glow to his paintings. And it came from a really interesting technique where he would paint in one color, either cyan, magenta, yellow, or black. You might recognize those as printer colors if you still have a printer in your house, let alone one that works. And he would paint his scene in one of those colors first, and then in multiple layers with that color, transparent layers, until he would then seal it with a varnish. Let the varnish dry and then paint with the next color over the top of that. And so this painting, as he was doing it, was evolving and growing until at the very end, he created these beautiful pieces of work that you can see have this kind of glow to them. And it's the light bouncing back through these layers of color that he meticulously laid down and separated with the varnish. It's a fascinating technique, and it just created this beautiful, evocative style of art that I loved. And it in particular made me want to play and experiment more. Next is Norman Rockwell. I think if you look at any of the works of Norman Rockwell that I'm showing here, you'll probably recognize quite a few of them. And he's representative, in my mind, of the American school of Golden Age illustrators at the time. J.C. Leierdecker was another contemporary with a very similar style. I particularly love the fact that Rockwell was able to show these really everyday scenes. So he had quite broad appeal, probably because he was able to show these lovely snapshots of American culture that people immediately related to, and the fact that he could tell a story in just one image. So you could see some examples here of the exhausted store clerk at the toy store on Christmas Eve. And I really love this one of the policeman having a careful conversation with a runaway boy, and the diner owner sort of looking on with a hint of a smile on his face. And it feels like in this, the story is that the policeman is being very respectful of the young man's intent and his adventure, and isn't trying to just grab him by the shirt collar and take him home. He's actually wanting to find out what's driven him to this particular point. Well, that's a story that I'm taking away from that. So I love the work of Rockwell. Apart from his astonishing technical brilliance, I just could look at his images over and over and over and marvel at his expertise. But it's the storytelling, and I feel like that's something that I like to do in my illustrations as well. little snapshots that are trying to encourage somebody to come up with a story that goes with it. It would not be a Golden Age illustration discussion if I didn't bring up Arthur Rackham, and probably of all of the artists today that I'm going to chat about, he's had the longest grip and influence on my style. I just love his meticulous line work and the detail that he puts in there. If you saw my first video in this series, you'll know that that seems to be something that particularly draws me. And his subject matter, fantasy, fairy, Peter Pan and pirate stories, all of these fantastic adventure type things and fantasy based things that I just adored and still adore. And if you've seen some of the work in my folio, you can clearly see how much I've been influenced by Arthur Rackham's beautiful line work. And oh, the trees that he does. And if ever I'm at an odd end, not knowing what I want to draw, I'll always draw a tree, and it'll be most likely informed by these beautiful twisted Gothic style trees that Arthur Rackham used to draw. Some of you may know that I'm also a big fan of The Wind in the Willows, and a large part of my connection to The Wind in the Willows came through the beautiful illustrations that accompany it by E.H. Shepard, who was also the illustrator that worked with A.A. Milne on the Winnie the Pooh series. Just lovely, cozy, simple illustrations, pen and ink and watercolor again, and a very huge part of my investment in those stories came down to looking at those illustrations. So it would be remiss of me not to mention E.H. Shepard, and I still love going back and just finding new things or marveling at the simplicity or the looseness of the particular illustrations. And it's something that I often will go to when I'm feeling like I'm getting a little bit too tight and a little bit too fastidious with what I'm doing. So E.H. Shepard, love E.H. Shepard's work. The last artist I want to talk about will probably be no surprise to anyone who's snuck a peek inside my folio, and that's Alphonse Mucha, or Mucha, depending on how you pronounce it. A Czechoslovakian painter, illustrator, graphic designer, stunning work. I'm just enamored of the design of his artwork. It was adapted for use on posters, on bottles of champagne, so there was a real sort of practical commercial aspect to the way that he made a living from his art, but beautiful, just gorgeous to look at. The circles, the curves, the way he incorporated text, his choice of colors, and just beautiful way that he represented the human figure. Really admired his work, very much wanted to emulate it in some of the pieces I've chosen to do. Particularly love the style that he does of a heavy line as a silhouette around the character to help pop them off their background. Huge fan of his work. So that'll wrap up part 2 of the Golden Age illustrators that inspire me and have helped shape the artist illustrator that I have become. Part 3 we'll be looking at fantasy artists, so I look forward to putting that one together. Simple pleasure for this week. Probably given that we've been talking about Maxfield Parrish and that luminescent, beautiful, evocative light in his artworks. One of the simple pleasures that I enjoy is golden hour, that late afternoon light. It does wonderful things to the landscape, but it's also a pretty popular time for people to take selfies. Thank you everybody again for all of the lovely support and the comments. Please keep them coming. Send me through your simple pleasures so I can shout them out. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Okay, bye.